Between growing flowers and growing a business, there's a lot of moving parts involved with building a flower farm. As the one in charge of it all, you likely wear a lot of different hats. I mean, you're the owner, the manager of field operations. You're more than likely the lead designer, the social media manager, head of customer service, the list goes on. And if you're anything like me, the one area of my flower farm that always seemed to get the least priority was documenting the flowers that I had grown. I'll admit I've struggled for a number of years because remembering to snap pictures of freshly made bouquets or arrangements, I felt like I never had the time. Especially when you're working with a perishable product, freshness matters, and I always felt pressure to simply get the flowers to their end destination as quickly as possible. And let's face it, even when I had more than enough flowers to make an extra bouquet, solely for the purpose of photographing it, I always seemed to talk myself out of it because at the end of the day, it was just one more thing I was trying to add on to my already overwhelming to-do list. But in more recent years, I've had a change of heart about the importance of having good photos on hand that are representative of the brand that I'm trying to create with my flower farm. In fact, if you watched our previous video, then you probably already know. But I truly believe that hiring a photographer and having actual professional photos taken of me with my flowers, it was one of the best investments that I made early on in my flower farming journey, as it had a significant impact on the growth of my business. Now, if you missed that video, or if you're curious which other investments had the biggest impact on my business, I'll link it in the description box below. But today I wanted to focus more on how to capture quality photos yourself using only your phone. Because I get it, having a professional photographer with you at all times is impractical, and sometimes you just need to capture something quickly and in the moment. So let's not waste any more time and let's get right to it. Let me start by stating the obvious. I am by no means a professional photographer, but after years of ignoring the photography side of my business, I've been more intentional about growing a library of my own images that I'm able to pull from when needed. Personally, it's one element of business that I wish I hadn't overlooked for so long. I mean, when you think about it, you realize that we're living in a very visual world. And with social media the way that it is right now, it's photos that will ultimately help share the story behind your brand and help sell your flowers. And if you think photos aren't important, well, let me illustrate the point that I'm trying to share here with a personal example. You see, if I scroll back far enough into my camera roll, these were the sort of images that I was capturing as I was just getting started growing flowers. Now, compare that to these photographs, which were more recent captures. Now, I'm not judging myself for where I started. I think if anything, this comparison illustrates that just like growing flowers, taking beautiful photos of your flowers, well, it's a skill that can be learned. Which means that with a little bit of practice, we all have it within us to snap Instagram or Pinterest worthy photos. But if I'm being really honest with myself and I'm looking at these two sets of photos, I can see why back in the day, someone may not have been as compelled to buy my product. Now, obviously it takes more than just a pretty photo for someone to want to buy from you, but photos do ultimately help grab the attention of potential customers. And when you can grab something as valuable as someone's attention, then you've at least increased your chance of making a sale. So let's dissect what it is exactly that makes these photos more visually appealing than these other earlier versions. To start, a lot of it has to do with the lighting, and I encourage you, as my first tip, to consider the lighting that you use as you take your photos. Now, back in the day, photographing was usually a last-minute thought for me, and I'd snap a picture as a bouquet was headed out the door or as working in the garden without any real consideration for what the sun was doing at that time of day. And what that often left me with were photos that were way overexposed, and there was often harsh lines and dark shadows present that I didn't do my flowers any favors. At other times, I experienced, the complete opposite, where I found that my photos were sort of dark and dingy looking because I snapped those photos too late in the evening, after the sun had set, and so my focal point of my image often wasn't illuminated nearly enough. But when I started taking photos with more intention, I realized that lighting could dramatically impact the quality of my photo. Personally, I prefer to take photos in early morning or late into the evening just before sunset, when the light is naturally soft. Sort of around that time when that golden hour lighting is present. And this is just what I found works best for me. If you like a different look to your photos, I encourage you to practice taking photos during various parts of the day, and take note of which ones are your favorite. Generally speaking, you'll have the best luck capturing photos you like when you take them around the same time of day. Now, the next consideration I want to mention is consideration for your background. Again, because this is a visual topic, I want to give you an example. So here are some photos I took of the exact same bunch of flowers, this white campanula. Now, if you follow me on Instagram or if you've hung around here online with me long enough, then you may already know, but I love a good flower hold shot. You know, this type of shot is relatively simple to capture, and the best part is that you can capture the image yourself without having to have somebody nearby to take a photo of you. Now, as you can see, despite these images all featuring the same bunch of flowers, they don't all quite have the same final effect. And the reason for this has a lot to do with the background. So a quick backstory. I had previously captured this image here of a bouquet of lavender campanula. I loved how the photo turned out. So after harvesting some of the white campanula, I was hoping to recreate the same photo just with the different colored flowers. But a lot of what makes this lavender campanula shot work so well is the fact that on this night when I was taking photos, the sky was clear. And so there was much more contrast between my focal point, those campanula flowers, and the background. The lavender campanula really pops when it's photographed in front of a blue sky and a relatively green ground covering. When we look back at this white campanula shot, there's not as much contrast simply because there were more clouds in the sky that night. And so what I did was I took the time to trial different backgrounds to see which would work better. I moved around to different areas in hopes of finding a more appropriate background. So my first try was this more grassy area, and while I like how the overall photo still looks very natural and nature focused, there's still not enough contrast for my liking. The flower stems, to me, they seem to just blend in with the grass on the ground and the clouds in the sky. And that's why I went for a much more distinct contrast by photographing this flower bunch in front of one of the barns on the property. While I don't have a lot of red in my photos, this final image still feels on brand for me. You know, the barn siding gives off that flower farm feel, and there's enough variance within the photo itself that those white stems really pop. Now, I know firsthand how much work it can take, especially in the beginning, to get the background just right for your photos. And if you're feeling like this may be a hurdle for you, one of my best tips is to have an area set aside with a neutral background that is always set up so that when you do have photos to take, you don't have to do any extra work to capture those images. So I've shared how I enjoy taking photos of my flowers in hand, but another favorite style that I like to utilize is I'd like to have those same flowers displayed in a vase that is positioned in front of a neutral background, like these that you see here. Now, when I first started taking these sort of images, I would drag my nightstand out of my bedroom because I liked the wood finish on the nightstand, and I would place it in the corner of my living room where I received the best diffused light through one of my living room windows. While it wasn't a lot of work to rearrange my furniture for this sort of image, it was enough work that if I was in a time crunch, I often would forgo taking a photo altogether because I didn't want to mess with having to set up my space for a single photo. Since realizing this about myself, I did order an additional nightstand that sits in the corner of my living room at all times. It's actually what you see behind me in a lot of the other videos that I shoot. Having this space ready to go whenever I have flowers available, it means that I'm that much more likely to follow through and document those flowers. I encourage you to do the same in your home. You know, think through the different spaces that you have available and find an area that reflects the style of your brand where you can capture photos simply and easily. It doesn't have to be a large space. You know, this is literally a small corner of my living room. And if you're working with a wall color that maybe isn't conducive to your brand, you can easily create a more fitting background by hanging some poster board or using some sort of sheet or curtain. Now, if all of this feels like a lot of work for a single image, my next tip for you is to get more bang for your buck by capturing multiple photos at once. What I mean by this is move around your bouquet or arrangement or whatever that you're trying to get an image of and capture it from different angles. When I'm working to capture an image, I'm making sure to capture my subject from all sides. I'm getting up close and trying to focus on only a few details at a time, and I'm also moving backwards and trying to get some wider shots. I'm photographing it from above to get maybe another unique angle. I'll take vertical portrait photos that are more appropriate for Instagram and Facebook, and I'll also be sure to take landscape photos that are more suitable for sharing here on YouTube. Even though my subject matter hasn't changed, having multiple perspectives of the same flowers helps you to have more photos at your disposal that you can use across different situations. Now, this leads me directly into my next tip, which is to really think through the end use of how you'll use your photos. Now trust me, I think it's great to capture photos even if you don't know how you'll use them quite yet. Having a library of your own images that you can pull from is great for promoting a cohesive and unified brand. But there are instances where it's important to be mindful of how a specific photo will be used. For example, if you plan on using your photos as product images, then you may want to consider ways to create consistency among those images. Take, for instance, these images that I captured of the different tulip varieties that we grew this past spring. I was very intentional about capturing images that had shared similarities because I knew that come fall, when we open our fall bulb sale and we sell these same varieties of tulips to our community, I wanted the shop page on our website to look uniform. As you can see, I photographed each variety of tulip using the same white vase against the same neutral background. And while there are some noticeable differences among the photos, I know that when I put these on our website, the photos are going to work together nicely and really give off a cohesive look. I did the same thing for the different daffodil varieties that we currently grow, as we will be selling daffodil bulbs as part of our fall bulb sale as well. Now, these photos are all hand grab shots, and having consistency among them makes it easier for our customers to compare and contrast the different varieties that we'll offer. Another instance of when it would be helpful to know the end use of your photos, instances where you plan to add either a heading or some sort of text to the photo. Maybe you're wanting to add some photos to your website and you want to include a headline with it. Well, in a case like that, you may want to have more negative space around your image to allow you to accomplish that. Your flowers don't need to be the focal point of each and every image that you use. Okay, so I have one more tip to share with you, and before we get there, I'd appreciate it if you do me a small favor. If you found the information that I've shared so far in this video helpful, could you give this video a thumbs up? It really does help small channels like ours grow, and we'd be so grateful for your support. So my last photography tip for today is simple, and that's to include yourself in photos so that you can truly be the face of your business. Now, for a lot of us, this can feel intimidating because we're not naturally comfortable in front of the camera. But nowadays, more than ever, people crave connection. We want a connection between ourselves and the businesses that we support. We want a more direct link to the products that we buy. And including yourself alongside the flowers that you're growing, it's what's going to help create that connection with your audience. As I've shared before in other videos, people are buying so much more from you than just the flowers that you're growing. Don't be afraid to step out from behind the camera so that you authentically share your story with others. You know, customers love being a part of those more intimate moments because then they feel like they're a part of something truly special. And that's what keeps them coming back again and again. And before you throw out the argument of how you don't have someone around all the time to take photos of you, well, allow me to share my secret to getting shots like this when I'm working by myself. All it takes is an affordable tripod that I purchased off of Amazon and a remote control that connects via Bluetooth to my phone's camera. What I love about this remote control is that it's easy enough to hide within my hand so it's not visible in the photos. And by controlling the shutter, I can easily take as many photos as I'd like without having to repeatedly set my phone's self-timer. It makes for a rather smooth process where I can easily capture photos of myself alongside my flowers. Just to reiterate, if you're really serious about standing out in a crowded marketplace, like is often the case when it comes to flowers, I can't encourage you enough to put yourself out there. When you show your face alongside your product, you're no longer just this brand, represented by a logo. You're a real person that people enjoy purchasing from. So there you have it, my best tips for capturing better photos that will support your flower farming business. Flowers themselves are such an incredibly beautiful medium, and I hope this video will help you more easily share the beauty of what you grow and design. Before you go, once more, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys back here soon. Bye now.